Now, who wins and who loses? It creates both winners and losers. Rent control creates both winners and losers. The big winners are people who live in rent-controlled apartments and pay less than the going rate. Yahoo! I got lower rents. Now, a couple things to remember. Their gain will be diminished when landlords allow the housing stock to deteriorate. Letting the housing stock deteriorate with less service and fewer repairs allows landlords to increase legally the quality-adjusted rent price. The rent control laws in New York City have provisions to punish landlords who let the stock deteriorate too much. But if you're having trouble getting the supervisor to fix something and you're in a rent-controlled apartment or a rent-stabilized apartment, you may have to wait a long time. Second, the gains can also be diminished when landlords require tenants to pay additional fees or costs that are abnormal. For example, the landlord for a rent-controlled or stabilized apartment may require security deposits and prepaid rent that are higher than what landlords require for apartments not subject to rent controls. They may require tenants to rent the apartment only if the landlord furnishes the apartment and charge more for the furniture than the tenant would pay if he or she rented furniture directly from a home furnishing store. Studies of New York City show that rent-controlled apartments require tenants to rent furniture more frequently than apartments that are not subject to rent control. The big losers are people who cannot find an apartment because of the reduction in the quantity supplied. Some localities try to stop the decrease in the quantity supplied by restricting the ability of landlords to convert apartments into condominiums. What would John Locke say about that? What would Richie Havens, he'd have to change his song from "No Freedom, No Freedom." Now, exactly who wins and loses depends on the allocation mechanism that replaces price as the rationing mechanism. If we go with first come, first serve, that will hurt people with busy schedule and help those with time on their hands or who can afford to employ people to stand in line. Rationing by connections hurts people who are not connected and helps those who are connected. Rationing by how the prospective tenant looks probably hurts people who do not look like the tenant, who do not look like the landlord, and helps those who are members of groups for which the landlord has an affinity. Now, raises the question, who wins and who loses when the minimum wage increases? The big winners are workers whose wages increase with the new minimum. Of course, their gains may be reduced by employers who reduce benefits. Reducing benefits by having less vacation, a greater share of health insurance paid by employees, etc., allows employers to decrease legally the net compensation to workers. Another winner are workers who earn more than the minimum wage and compete with minimum wage workers. Milton Friedman argued that self-interest motivates the support by labor and trade unions for increases in minimum wage. The wages of these unions are well above the minimum wage. However, as the minimum wage increases, the wage paid to low-skilled workers increases, thereby increasing the demand for and wages paid to highly skilled workers. Milton Friedman says it's no accident that unions are always in favor of minimum wage. Even the minimum is way below union wages. Now, the big losers are people who would find employment at the equilibrium wage and cannot find employment at the minimum wage. Milton Friedman argued that the minimum wage often hurts the very groups that people with good intentions are trying to help. Since the minimum wage affects most directly groups that tend to earn wages at or near the minimum, they are most directly affected by the increase in the wage. The people affected most directly are the least skilled workers. So my own opinion, my own concern is that the folks who have more difficulty finding employment are the least skilled workers in our economy, and those are the people that I am most wanting to see improve their lot in life. Well, this brings us to the million-dollar question. Are price controls good things? Economists generally agree that price controls adversely affect many of the people that they are intended to help, and that more efficient ways may exist to achieve the desired goals. Here are two pieces of evidence that economists generally agree that price controls adversely affect many of the people they are intended to help. 93% of the economists polled agree that a price ceiling on rents reduces the quantity and quality of housing available. 78% of the economists polled agree that a minimum wage increases unemployment among young and unskilled workers. These results come from a table at the chapter 1, table 1 of ManQ. Reducing the quality and quantity of housing is contrary to the goal of helping people find affordable housing. Increasing unemployment among unskilled workers is contrary to the goal of helping them achieve a high standard of living. Economists also agree that programs more specifically aimed at the problem they are designed to tackle may be more efficient. For example, most economists agree that the federal Earned Income Tax Credit is a better way than the minimum wage to raise the standard of living for low-wage workers. The Earned Income Tax Credit affects only people with low incomes. According to the best Congressional Budget Office estimate, just 19% of the $31 billion increase in wages paid if the minimum wage increases from $7.25 to $10.10 would accrue to families with earnings below the poverty level, whereas 29% of the increase would accrue to families earning more than 3 times the poverty level. Remember, minimum wage helps a single mom trying to support her family of 4 just as it helps my daughter who takes a summer job who is, by most standards, not very poor. Economists also agree that subsidies to low-income households, giving them perhaps housing subsidies, is a better way than rent controls to help them find affordable housing. A definitive judgment of the merits of price controls requires knowledge of the size of the impact. Unfortunately, measuring the impact of a price control is difficult. Estimates of the impact of increasing minimum wage on unemployment vary widely. Similarly, the impact of rent controls on housing stock vary, and large differences exist between what happens soon after the government imposes the controls and what happens as the years pass. Therefore, one person may favor an increase in minimum wage because he believes the impact on unemployment is small, while another person may oppose the increase because she believes the impact is large. Similarly, one person may favor a decrease in the price ceiling for rental apartments because he believes that the impact on housing availability is, I may have that flipped around. Oh no, that's correct. One person may favor a decrease in the price ceiling for rental apartments because he believes the impact on housing availability is small, while another person may oppose the decrease because she believes the impact is large.